Marwah Rizquy, as you know by now, of course, I think is the Liberal MNA representing the riding of Saint-Laurent. She's also the official Liberal opposition critic on education. And education has been the story for the past couple of days in the province. A couple of days ago, Bernard Drinville unveiling his education dashboard, 9 particular points on that he thinks will make things better. Although already there has been pushback. We heard from Heidi Yetman with the Canadian Teachers Federation just the other day, yesterday actually, talking about the fact of things that she does not think are right here. But one of the ones that didn't come up then but is coming up now is this story. If you didn't know it, and I think it's important to point out, boys in this province simply do not do as well in school as girls. And Marwah, I know that's something you want to bring up. You have a young son, and as you wrote, you said, as the mother of a young boy, like all parents in Quebec, you said, I look at it and imagine a society in which my son is called to grow up. And then you said you're worried about what you see in our classrooms. So let's start with that. What is it that you're concerned with here?
Well, back in June, I started to collect the data in every university of Quebec for the last 20 years, program per program, and then from CEGEP and also in the high school. And there's one thing that I realized is for the last 30 years, there's a gap between the boys and the girls starting in high school. Just to give you a simple example, if you have a boy who has no problem learning problem, he has less than 50% chance to finish his high school in time. That means within 5 years. And that's been the story for the last 20 years. And if we look to the data, now the Minister of Education looks if he's going to finish in 7 years. But it's not a high school of 5 years, it's a high school, So basically there's 10% gap between the girls and the boys for the last 3 years. And that gap also now has actually an impact in university. Right now in university, 70% of the admission are women. If you look to programs such as business, only 40% are men. In law school, the average is 30%. In combine all the health programs, so that means dentistry, pharmacy, the medicine program, it's only 20% of men today, the average in the health program. So this is like something very important to know. And I was wondering why we didn't do something about it, because I understand that there's a way to succeed if you have also like a diploma from a vocational school, but how come we do not do something about it? Because if we remember correctly, back in the 70s and 80s, the government decided to tackle the issue for the women to make sure that all the women in Quebec, we have the possibility to go to the higher education. And we did achieve so many great things for us women, but how come we cannot do the same for the men?
Well, as you cite those statistics, I'm thinking to myself, I would have imagined some of them would be completely the opposite. You talk about people going into the legal profession in universities. So the numbers, I guess, as you say, speak for themselves. What are you suggesting be done here? And is the government listening at all?
Well, the thing is, I think many ministers, when they become in head of the educational system, they look to the data like like we say, like macro data. I'll give you another example of a macro data. Remember, every 3 or 4 years we have the PISA test. It's international test with all the students at the age of 15-year-old. Mm-hmm. And Quebec does actually very well. Like internationally, we have a very good ranking. But if you look closely to data for the last 20 years, the boys are doing less than the girl by 20 points in average. But in 2018, the boys were doing 30 points less than the girl. That means at the age of 15-year-old, a boy has 1 year of school behind the girl when it comes down to learning from reading. This is a massive gap. And how come no one is looking closely to the data? Because no one actually decided to tackle that issue. I don't know, because is it not popular to talk about the boys going to higher education? I don't know. But one thing for sure that I do know, right now the public system is not fulfilling the promises for the boys.
You also point out in your letter, and this is rather astonishing, I had no idea in this either, the number of students with disabilities or academic learning difficulties, like ADHD, has more than doubled in the public system.
Yes, and I'll give you again, this is like, again, not only we know that we have more kids with disability, but the resources are not there. So even if you have a diagnostic of your kid who needs language therapist, he will never find that language therapist in the public system for many years. And this is even worse for the English system because good luck to find an Anglophone in the qualified as a language therapist.
Mm-hmm.
This is very hard to find them.
Yeah, we've actually heard that. We've had callers say the same thing, looking forever, just trying to get some help because it was in English and being unable to get that help for a long, long time. Look, you point out the problem is the numbers are there. It's hard to argue with the data. What gets done here?
What we should do now, I think that issue has to be tackled outside of the parliament. The parliament, it's one thing, but what we need is the people outside, like the teachers. We need also the expert. We do have very, very important professors who did studies for the last 20 years, but no one actually took the time to read their own studies. They do exist. And we need to make sure that someone is accountable. Right now, I have to say it, I'm disappointed of the Minister of Education because they do have all those data that I had access finally because of all my requested of access information. Mm-hmm. But they have those data. How come no one was in charge of that? How come no one's accountable of that? We have to make sure that this issue is number one priority, just like we did for the woman. And we cannot just say, and I have to say it, the Conseil supérieur de l'éducation. This is like an institution in Quebec. Very important. You know what they wrote back in 1999 about that issue? They solved the problem. They said, the real thing is women just love school more than men. I'm sorry, this is so simple. This is so simple as an answer. It's not the good answer. We have to go deeper. We need to understand maybe the school as we know it is not adaptable for the boys. Maybe also there's something that we need to address. Where are the good man model for the boys in school?
Yeah. I would ask, I mentioned the plan announced by Bernard Drinville, the education minister, right? A 9-point plan. Did you see anything in there related to this at all?
No, at all, but I have to say something. Éric Girard, when he did his economic update back in November, he had like one little paragraph about it, and I was actually excited. I'm like, oh my God, he actually pointed out an issue that I'm working on it. When I did the follow-up with the budget, no words about that. So he did actually point out an issue. He said, we have also to look to the boys in the school system to make sure that they have all the option for them to go to the higher education. But after that, I didn't hear anything, and I didn't read anything in the budget.
Yeah, yet this government says its focus is on healthcare and education. So here's a point in education. And by the way, you cite a really interesting figure here as well. You ask, why is the data worrisome? And then you say, on average, a student here who has not graduated from high school will earn $500,000 less over his or her lifetime than a person who has.
Yes. And if you combine all the students who will not finish their high school, the cost for the society is $14 billion, which is about the budget of the entire education system of last year.
It's unbelievable. Marwah, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thank you for raising this point.
Thank you.
Take care. You too. Marwah Rizquy, liberal education critic. Those numbers are pretty incredible, aren't they? Again, as I said, when you hear some of the faculties she's mentioning where just boys simply are now being outnumbered by girls, just no interest in going into those fields. And then to read that, the graduation rate here, which we already know is not great, is much, much worse for boys than it is for girls. Got to think that would be something the government would want to address.